certainly may be a time of emotional reflection for guests. If at any point you feel the need for a more private space to take a moment or a space to talk to a friend, we've arranged a quiet room. This room is just down the hallway over here past the security desk. If you feel like you would like to talk to someone today, we've arranged through the provincial government's Employee Assistance Program to have counsellors here on site that are accessible at any point in time. Could the counsellors raise their hands so they can make themselves visible? Visible? Okay, thank you. Before we proceed with today's ceremony, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the province of Newfoundland and Labrador as the ancestral homelands of many diverse populations of Indigenous peoples who have contributed over 9,000 years of history, including the Beothuk of the island of Newfoundland. Today, this province is home to diverse populations of Indigenous and other peoples. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit. It is now my honor to invite Inuit Elder Emma Relis to deliver the opening prayer. Emma Relis is a residential school survivor, a long-time dedicated community activist for the prevention of gender-based violence in our province and Indigenous communities. Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. It is my privilege now to invite the Honourable Pam Parsons, Minister responsible for Women and Gender Equality, to the podium.
Thank you, Angela, and good morning, everyone, honoured colleagues, community partners, and special guests. Thank you for joining us for the Purple Ribbon flag raising and proclamation signing ceremony. Gender-based violence affects our society at its very core, and it knows no boundaries and transcends borders, cultures, and socioeconomic statuses. The statistics are alarming and the stories are heart-wrenching, as we know. The Purple Ribbon campaign was created to raise awareness about gender-based violence and inspire a call to action. It also sends a powerful message that society will not tolerate such abuse. Violence against women, girls, and gender-diverse people has lasting negative impacts throughout our communities, province, and our country. In Canada, women are overrepresented as victims of intimate partner violence, accounting for almost 8 in 10 victims. And Indigenous women are 3 times more likely to be victims of violent crime than are non-Indigenous women. Through Budget 2023, our government provided nearly $400,000 to support Indigenous-led violence prevention initiatives, including the Indigenous Violence Prevention Grants Program, the annual Provincial Indigenous Women's Gathering, and support to the Newfoundland Aboriginal Women's Network. Through Budget 2023, the Office of Women and Gender Equality also allocated $3.3 million in violence prevention and equity-seeking organizations and projects. This is indeed a testament to our government's recognition of the importance of the community sector as it relates to violence prevention work. I would also like to recognize the Provincial Indigenous Women's Reconciliation Council and the work being done to establish a collaborative, ongoing working relationship between Indigenous women and the provincial government. The goal of the Council is to coordinate and lead meaningful action, address existing challenges and obstacles in the areas of culture, health and wellness, justice and human security that will lead to lasting changes in legislation, policies and procedures that impact Indigenous women, girls, and the 2S LGBTQIA+ people. The chance of being a victim of violence is 2 times higher among lesbian, gay, or bisexual Canadians than among their heterosexual counterparts. These statistics represent real people facing real suffering and, too often, as we know, death. Monday, November 20th, was the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which honors the memory of people whose lives were lost in acts of anti-transgender violence. These actions are senseless, and we continue to hold space for all people affected by gender-based violence around the world. We must continue to lift up and support individuals and organizations that are actively working to combat this hate through education and engagement. Our government remains steadfast in its commitment to working in partnership with Indigenous governments and organizations, people with lived experience, community agencies, and stakeholders to ensure supports are in place for people who have been impacted by gender-based violence. Newfoundland and Labrador recently concluded negotiations with the federal government on a 4-year bilateral funding agreement to support the implementation of the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence in this province. Details regarding this multi-million-dollar funding agreement that will benefit many groups and organizations right here at home will be announced in partnership with the federal government in the coming weeks. The National Action Plan is based on 5 pillars: prevention, responsive justice system, implementing Indigenous-led approaches, support for survivors and their families, and social infrastructure and enabling environment. Together with our stakeholders, we are doing important work in the area of violence prevention, and today we will raise the purple ribbon flag and sign a proclamation to mark the start of the Purple Ribbon Campaign and 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. There are many important community groups represented here today, and as I look around the room, I can see them. And I commend you for being here and for all that you do every day, all year round. I thank you for your dedication to making Newfoundland and Labrador a safer and more inclusive place for everyone. We all share the conviction that change is needed here in our great province. Together, we need to ensure that our family members, our friends, our colleagues never have to experience violence and suffering because of their gender, because of their sexual orientation, their identity, or their culture. Before I conclude, I would like to draw your attention to the table displaying the flowers over here that have been placed to remember those who have been lost, their lives, or who they have been impacted by gender-based violence. I'd ask now that we could stand to observe a moment of silence to remember them. Thank you. Let us work together to commit to change and work relentlessly until gender-based violence is a thing of the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Please join me in welcoming the Wabeg Muin Men's Drumming Group to perform Strong Women Song. Wabeg Muin incorporates modern and traditional elements in their drumming with a focus on Mi'kmaq songs. They take pride in bringing the traditional ways of powwow drumming to cultures and communities all over the island of Newfoundland. Thank you so much, always so powerful to hear. The drum is a grounding force, a heartbeat that reminds us of our connectedness and our need to work collaboratively to prevent gender-based violence against women, girls, and the 2S LGBTQIA individuals in our communities, our province, and our country. Next, I would like to welcome to the podium Miss Debbie Hibbs, mother of Juliana Hibbs, a young woman who lost her life as a result of intimate partner violence. Debbie and her family have turned their personal tragedy into a dedicated effort for the prevention of gender-based violence.
Minister Pam Parsons, Office of Women and Gender Equality, Kathy Dix-Payton, Emily Christie and staff, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here today and supporting the Purple Ribbon flag-raising ceremony, which coincides with the Purple Ribbon campaign. I thought a flag flown for everyone to see would bring awareness to domestic and intimate partner violence, and to honor and remember all our loved ones whose lives were taken from them because of violence. This flag was brought about by myself and my husband Philip, along with all the help and assistance of Mr. David Brown, Private Secretary to Lieutenant Governor, executive position within provincial government at that time. This flag represents awareness, hope, and action against a scourge that affects and destroys so many. This is why events like the Purple Ribbon flag raising are so important, because it heightens awareness and reminds us that we can never stop advocating for laws to change and to implement programs in our educational system. We were the first provincial legislature in Canada to fly this Purple Ribbon flag for the first time in 2016. And it is my hope that eventually it will be flown all around the world. This Purple Ribbon flag will be flown for the 16 days of activism on domestic relationship and gender violence, coinciding with the Purple Ribbon campaign, from November the 25th through to December the 10th. The Purple Ribbon flag will also be flown in our hometown of Conception Bay South for the 16 days of activism, and our town hall will be lighted in purple. Also, every year we have a tree lighted in purple at the old town hall site in recognition of domestic relationship and gender violence, and will stay lighted into the Christmas season. Now, I would like to tell you a little about Julianne. Julianne was born on January 3rd, 1978. She was truly the most beautiful baby. I know all mothers think the same about their children, but she was so beautiful. It was a Tuesday, and the sky was so blue with some white clouds, and the sun was shining so bright as Phil drove me to the hospital. I remember very vividly. We arrived around 9 a.m., and Julianne was born 10:35 a.m. She was absolutely perfect. Her complexion was without a flaw, and her light-colored hair, which was so fine, stood up straight on her head. So adorable. She was a pleasant and happy baby. Phil and I were so happy. I remember the first time she said, "Mom, Mom," at 5 months old. The first time she laughed out loud. My friend Pam, who was visiting, shook her car keys in front of her when she was leaving, which ignited a contagious giggle from Julianne. I can still see her little face and the sound of her laughing. Pam and I were so excited, we couldn't stop laughing. Such a happy moment we shared together. The little sound, she would make as her little lips left the spoon as I was feeding her, so enjoying every moment. The orange tinge on her little cheeks from eating carrots, the first vegetable I fed her. We read to Julianne from the time we brought her home from the hospital. And whenever anyone came to visit, she would always go and get a book, bring it back, sit up on the couch beside them, and they would read to her. Her favorite at that time was The Little Red Hen. It was worn out, of course, but I still have that book today. Julianne loved flowers. She loved to pick them and smell them. She had a heart-shaped scented candle that came in a heart-shaped tin, and she took that candle everywhere. She would always be opening it and smelling it. I still have that candle today. First thing she would say when anyone came to visit, "Are you staying for supper?" The beautiful poem Julianne wrote at 9 years old when her Poppy Morgan died, whom she was very close to and very saddened when he passed. My dad thought the world of Julianne. She was his first grandchild. This framed poem has a very special place on our wall in our home. Julianne always made homemade cards for everyone, with her own verse for special occasions, but it didn't have to be a special occasion to get a card from Julianne. Julianne was a very thoughtful child who never outgrew the character of thoughtfulness and kindness. Julianne loved the beach and collecting shells and beach rocks. She loved taking pictures. Julianne loved music, and I guess she got her taste of music from her dad. She loved to listen to Bon Jovi, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, among many more. We will never forget the time she went to the Bon Jovi concert and he kissed her hand. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. Well, she was so excited. She wouldn't wash her hand for a week. She loved animals and they loved her. Julianne loved her family and spending time with her friends. There could never be anyone who met Julianne that didn't love her. That was impossible. There was nothing about Julianne not to love. I am not being biased as her mom. But if we could all be like Julianne, what a beautiful world this would be. Julianne was a beautiful, smart, honest, caring, funny, and unassuming person with the most beautiful smile. Some would say she would light up the room as she walked in. She had the purest heart and always saw the best in people. And to people who knew her, she was the truest friend. There are so many things I could tell you about Julianne, but there is not enough time. Julianne loved life from the day she was born. As Julianne's sister once said to me, "Mom, we will never be as good as Julianne." Now, all we are left with is memories. When Julianne turned 16, her life spiraled out of control. The perpetrator who came into her life took over her life. We had no rights as parents because of the age of consent at that time. Isn't there something wrong with that law? We tried to implore upon the RNC that there was a real concern here. He controlled everything. We were always told she was in the gray area of the law, but nobody could ever really explain what that meant. Only there was nothing they could do. And if there was something wrong with this relationship, Julianne would have to get out of it on her own. How can she do that? When there are women who have been in abusive and controlling situations for years, even married women who could not leave on their own because of fear. A young girl with no experience into this world of manipulation, abuse, and control, leaving on her own would not be an option. He took her away from us. We weren't allowed any contact with Julianne. Her friends weren't allowed any contact. He told the guidance counselor at school she wasn't to have any contact with her parents. There were so many red flags, and he was 9 years older than Julianne. You cannot imagine what our family has gone through and is still going through. It's been almost 30 years now, almost half my lifetime. Retired RNC officer Inspector Connie Pike said at the time, Julianne was a hostage in broad sight, and she tried to help us. She spent hours upon hours documenting everything we had to tell her about what was happening to Julianne. Still, there was nothing we could do to get our daughter out of this serious situation she had been drawn into. What changes have been made in the past 30 years, or even 10 years ago? Domestic relationship and intimate partner violence has not gone away and is very prevalent in our province today and all over the world. Speaking out is no good if nobody is listening. I am speaking for all young girls, women, and yes, men. Julianne's fiancé, Vincent Dillon, was an indirect result of domestic relationship violence. I want parents to know what happened to Julianne can happen to anyone. People from all walks of life are affected by this scourge that has been around since time began, but it has always been silenced because the victim is too afraid to speak out. I truly wonder if this same scenario happened today. Would there be any help for Julianne? I'm not convinced. Speaking out from our own personal tragedy, believe me, it's not easy. I thought it would make a difference for the good by sharing our story of personal tragedy, but now I feel as if I have wasted years of my own life. Has it been in vain? We cannot change laws. We make our voices heard in hopes government and the judicial system will act to make this world a safer place to live. Why is domestic relationship such a taboo subject? It's like a plague. Nobody wants to be involved or admit to the problem, making the victim more silenced. It's reality. It's a global issue, a societal issue, not just a personal issue. No one is exempt from domestic relationship and gender violence. Excuse me. We were faced with 2 brutal murders and 2 heartbreaking funerals. It's hard for people to understand the impact that murder can have on a family. Murder is not a natural death. Murder is not dying. Murder is taking another person's life unlawfully. There is nothing normal about this kind of grief. The grieving never ends, and the emptiness is unbearable. All these young girls, women and men, never got to live out their lives. Don't we all have a right to live in a safe environment? Do we just think this can't or would never happen to us? You could never be so further from the truth. How could this have ever happened to our family? Well, it did. And we could not even protect our 16-year-old daughter. She was the victim, and the perpetrator had all the rights. What kind of judicial system do we have here to protect our children? 16 years old is not an adult. At 16 years old, you can't buy and drink liquor, alcohol. You can't buy tobacco. You can't use a tanning salon. Can't buy lottery tickets. Can't receive GST. You can't vote. You can't obtain a marriage license because you have to be 19 years of age, the age of majority in Newfoundland and Labrador, the right to manage your life. But at 16 years of age, you can be abused, manipulated, and controlled held and confined with no contact with family or friends, living in fear. All self-esteem is gone. And they tell you, if you need to leave, you only have to say 3 words. Get me out. We all know that will never happen. Back in 1995, intervention would have ultimately saved Julianne's life. There were certainly enough red flags. Domestic, intimate partner, and gender abuse is a worldwide epidemic. It should be a priority. It needs attention yesterday. It can't wait for tomorrow. It will be too late. There are people out there right now as I speak, living this nightmare. What are they going to do? I do realize some changes have been made. The restricted weapons he used 10 years ago are now prohibited. Ankle bracelets have been re-implemented. Clear's law is now in effect in our province. These are all good things and will have positive change, but it is not nearly enough. Much more needs to be done. On October the 15th, 2013, we lost our daughter Julianne and her fiancé Vincent Dillon to a horrific and violent act of domestic violence. First-degree, premeditated murder, which ended in a double murder-suicide. It happened at the Villanova Medical Clinic while Julianne was waiting to see her doctor for a medical she needed for a new job she had just started. Vinny was waiting for her in his vehicle with their dog, Haley. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Hibbs. I now invite Debbie's son, Christopher, and his friend, Jack Pico, to perform a song written by Christopher about his sister entitled Born Tragedy.
Stuck in a picture frame, part of a mystery. We're all part of the game. Win or lose, you're out. There is no question of doubt. We're all part of the game, and it's all a part of the blame. It's a stinger in my elbow, a mirror of my pain. You're a born tragedy, and in the end, we are all the same. Lesson to be learned, to think it was my turn, falling short of what's to be, a part of you inside of me. It's written in the stars, a part of your destiny. I wish you were still here, but it's all a part of the mystery. It's a stinger in my elbow, a mirror of my pain. You're a born tragedy, and in the end, we are all the same. Torn memories, born tragedy, was the cost in the loss of a family. Torn memories, born tragedy, was the cost in the loss of a family. You're a born tragedy. Oh, you're a born tragedy. Torn memories, born tragedy, was the cost in the loss of a family. Torn memories, born tragedy, was the cost in the loss of a family. You're a born tragedy. Oh, you're a born tragedy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher and Jack, for that beautiful and moving song. We're now going to hear from Deputy Chief Stephanie Lagasse of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary and Corporal Jolene Garland from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as they share with us what it's like to work on the front lines when it comes to intimate partner violence.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Warren, and I'm the Superintendent of the Criminal Investigation Division of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, which includes the Intimate Partner Violence Unit. Today is an important but difficult day for survivors, families, and friends. While we, as a police agency, continue to dedicate resources to protecting victims and survivors, we will never forget those lost at the hands of another. To those who are grieving, I extend my sincerest condolences. By being here today, we demonstrate our support for survivors and reaffirm our commitment to work to end violence against women and girls. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we also acknowledge that Indigenous women, girls, and 2SLGBTQIA+ people are at a higher risk of violence, and we must work alongside Indigenous governments and organizations to reduce and prevent gender-based violence in our province. Based on data from 2017, the RNC Intimate Partner Violence Unit receives over 1,500 intimate partner violence referrals a year. We know, however, that the numbers only tell part of the story, as intimate partner violence is underreported and many suffer in abusive relationships without police intervention. Intimate partner violence can vary in frequency and severity. In an attempt to detect and identify abusers, a crime analyst at the RNC assesses all files for elements of IPV. That includes incidents of property crime, financial crime, violation of court orders, and perhaps the more obvious, uttering threats, sexual assault, criminal harassment, forcible confinement, abduction, and homicide. With a trauma-informed focus, our officers prioritize the safety and well-being of all. The IPV unit can help develop safety plans and also helps connect survivors to supports and resources in the community. And when or if they are ready, they can discuss the legal options available to them. Intimate partner violence is complex, and every case is unique. The work we do, specifically in the area of intimate partner violence, would not be possible without the relationships we have with our community partners, many of whom are here today. These important relationships allow us the ability to break down barriers and meet and support those fleeing abusive relationships where they are, without the pressure, judgment, or stigma of going to a police department. The work women supporting organizations do is truly life-changing, and on behalf of the RNC, I thank you for your commitment to the safety of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. The RNC has an aggressive charge policy as it relates to intimate partner violence offenders. All of our frontline officers are trained to investigate and identify intimate partner violence. The recently announced Clare's Law, as mentioned by Mrs. Hibbs, also gives us, as police officers, the ability to proactively disclose information directly to someone we believe is at risk of intimate partner violence if we know they are in a relationship with someone with an abusive past. As I conclude, I would encourage anyone who believes another is living in an abusive environment to contact police. By working together, we can support victims and survivors throughout the province. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Superintendent Pamela Robinson, and I am pleased to be here on behalf of the RCMP of Newfoundland and Labrador to join you all in the launch of the Purple Ribbon campaign. I extend deepest condolences to those in attendance today who are grieving the loss of loved ones killed by intimate partner violence. I commend our guest speakers who are bravely sharing their stories of tragic loss. Your words may be exactly what someone might need to hear to reach out for help. Thank you. As law enforcement officers, we see and understand the profound impacts of intimate partner violence on individuals, families, and our communities as a whole. Such violence knows no boundaries and presents itself in communities throughout our province. For each of the past 3 years, the RCMP in Newfoundland and Labrador has received an average of more than 2,200 calls for service involving intimate partner violence. And we certainly know that the issue is much more prevalent than what it is reported, given that many victims of this crime continue to suffer in silence. Like the RNC, the RCMP as an intimate partner violence IPV unit that examines all police files to detect gender-based violence and offenders. Any file involving such violence is overseen from start to finish by our IPV unit with support to investigators and detachments throughout our province. These files are high priority for the RCMP, and when appropriate, charges are pursued aggressively. Additionally, the IPV unit coordinates and implements crime reduction initiatives within the province based on information gathered and analyzed from our calls of service. The IPV unit forms part of a larger 6-person special victims unit, which is designated to support victims of IPV and sexual violence. The Special Victims Unit conducts analysis on reported occurrences to identify emerging crime trends, identify repeated offenders in relationship violence, and ensure that police measures are evolving to address all aspects of this crime type. This information is shared with our police officers across the province to ensure the RCMP is doing its utmost to reduce risk and harm to both current and potential victims of relationship violence. Recently, we took part in the government's announcement of Clare's Law coming to effect, and we welcome this legislation as another important tool in our work. I have to acknowledge our community partners and agencies who we work with collaboratively in connecting our clients who need support when leaving a violent relationship. For those we encounter who may not be ready to report or leave a violent home, our IPV unit has developed a quick reference tool with very practical information to consider when planning to exit a violent relationship. It includes tips on how to create a safety plan, contact numbers for shelter, and how to complete online safety. This tool is shared discreetly by police officers on our front lines when anybody or they encounter anyone they feel needs this information. The Purple Ribbon Campaign is a call to action for all members of our community, residents, businesses, and organizations. By standing together, we send a resounding message that gender-based violence has no place in our society. Throughout our combined efforts, we can be catalysts of change, shaping the future where safety, respect, and equality can be the norm, are the norm, not can be the norm, are the norm. But there is much more work to do. I'd like to close by speaking directly to those who are now experiencing or are at risk of intimate partner violence. Please know you are not alone. You deserve better, and we are here to help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your insight into the work you do. We're so thankful to have those resources, and I do have to apologize. I think I got both of your names right, and I knew you are not the Deputy Chief. It's Sheriff Moore, and I think as Inspector is your, I could be giving you a promotion, I don't know. I'd now like to call upon Minister Parsons to read and officially sign the Purple Ribbon Proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador's violence prevention work is based on a vision that the people of our province will live in safe, caring communities where there is inherent respect for each other and violence of any sort is unacceptable. And whereas the provincial Purple Ribbon Campaign runs annually from November 25th, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, through December 6th, National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, ending December 10th, encompassing the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And whereas the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence is an international campaign designed to develop strategies to increase international awareness of the systemic nature of gender-based violence. And whereas gender-based violence devastates those who love and support women and gender-diverse individuals, as well as relationships, families, communities, neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, villages, cities, and towns, and the world over. And whereas the Provincial Purple Ribbon Campaign provides an opportunity for individuals, Indigenous groups, and organizations, community organizations, and governments to work together in solidarity and draw upon this period of heightened attention to gain support for local efforts to eliminate gender-based violence. And whereas Government of Newfoundland and Labrador stands in solidarity with organizations worldwide that desire change for a better, more equal, and more just world for women and gender-diverse individuals. And whereas it is only through raising awareness and changing attitudes that gender-based violence can be stopped and prevented. Therefore, be it resolved that the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador does hereby proclaim November 25th to December 10th as the Purple Ribbon Campaign to prevent gender-based violence against women and gender-diverse individuals in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you, Minister Parsons. And here to share another story of lived experience of losing a loved one through intimate partner violence is Glenda Power, aunt of Courtney Lake, a young woman who disappeared from Mount Pearl in 2017 and to date has not been found.
Good morning, everyone. Courtney's mom, Lisa Lake, was scheduled to speak, but this morning she's quite ill and asked me to attend in her place, and I'm pleased to do so. Thank you, Minister Parsons, for the kind invitation for our family to be represented here today. Thank you, Debbie and the Hibbs family, for raising the purple flag and ensuring and assisting government as they continue this now as an annual tradition. It's important. It matters. On June 7th, 2017, at about 9 p.m., I got a call from Lisa, my youngest sister, and said, you know, Courtney's not home. And she was supposed to be home. I was coming home with supper and kind of worried. And I said, well, you know, she's a young woman, maybe, you know, I wasn't too concerned at first. But by the next day, we hadn't heard from her, and Lisa filed a report with the RNC. And they issued a missing persons alert for Courtney. Just a few days after that, they updated to say that they had serious concerns for her safety. Now, as a family, a young woman goes missing, you can only imagine the thoughts that were running through our heads. Where was she? What was happening to her? How could we find her? Courtney was a mom, a daughter, sister, granddaughter, my niece, cousin to my daughters. She mattered. June 30th. Despite our best hopes, we knew that we were no longer looking to find Courtney alive. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary announced on June 30th, 2017, that her case was now a homicide investigation. As Debbie said, murder is not normal. Families should not have to endure it. The name of this presentation is Surviving Murder. We're still trying to survive murder, as is the Hibbs family. It's the most devastating thing that anyone can endure. At first, we weren't sure who might have taken Courtney, although we had suspicions. Her ex, Philip Smith, had been violent with her, was wanting to reconnect with her, and on the day that she disappeared at 4 p.m., he was in a courtroom where Courtney's own words were read out about the violence and harassment and assaults that she had endured. A protection order was put in place at 4 p.m. that day, which Philip Smith agreed to, spoke before the judge, absolutely promised he would not pursue Courtney. 4 hours later, she was gone, and he had her. At first, we didn't know that for sure, nor did the police, but you know, circumstances are unusual sometimes. There was a metro bus on a route off Old Placentia Road that was running late, or running early, sorry. So it stopped on the side of the road near the stop just to wait for the time to pass and so he could get in schedule with his route. And lo and behold, that camera footage captured, if you see in the upper corner, the CBC coverage, you can just see a corner of a black truck. It was Philip Smith's truck, and Courtney got into it. And that piece of evidence, that information, we knew then that he had her, that he had picked her up. Now, some people will say to me, my goodness, why did she get in the truck? I suggest you ask the question instead, why did Philip Smith pursue her when he had just promised the judge he would not? We believe that Courtney got in the truck because Philip had some items and mementos and Christmas ornaments that she wanted back. And we think she was lured in and killed shortly after that. Philip Smith was convicted that summer of multiple offenses of assault, harassment, and sharing of intimate images without permission. He was the first person to be charged, actually, under that new legislation. At that time, government had implemented cost-cutting measures, and even if the judge had wanted to, he couldn't have made Philip Smith wear a monitoring bracelet because it didn't exist because it was too expensive. Now, we don't know if Courtney would be alive if he had been tracked, but I know we'd have her remains. I'm pretty sure of that. Our government lobbied, our family lobbied the government, and we're so pleased that that monitoring bracelet system is now back, and it really could save lives. I work in communications. I'm a communications strategist. I've been one for nearly 25 years, and you know, as a family, when we looked at what lay before us, I took on that role, always in consultation with Courtney's extended family. And myself and my sister Donna, we created a Facebook page called Help Us Find Courtney. And the RNC was also communicating very heavily about the case, sharing her image and so on. My goal was that we might get 5,000 followers. I thought that'd be a great way to kind of share her story, keep her picture out there. I don't know if I slept for days after Courtney went missing because I was constantly on that page watching it because I was thinking, what if she tries to message us there? Anyway, in the first 24 hours, we had 5,000 followers, and we had 5,000 new followers for 4 days after that, and we still have over 25,000 followers on that page. And do you know why? Because she matters. Still. If you were doing a Facebook search in Newfoundland and Labrador on the summer 2017, you would have a hard time finding someone by their image because everyone had changed their profile picture to Courtney at our request. It was amazing. We had someone in our group suggest, why don't we ask people to leave their porch lights on for Courtney? And so many pictures flooded social media with the lights on for Courtney, wanting to guide her home. The RNC let us know that for Courtney's case, they received the largest number of tips they've ever received in any homicide investigation, and they credited that, of course, with our joint efforts. Okay. Searches. So we stepped back early on. We knew the RNC had a job to do, but as a little time passed, we really felt as a family we needed to galvanize support and start looking for her, which we did, always informing the RNC. We'd call and say, we're thinking about searching here, but if you're thinking of it, we won't go there, because we didn't want to interfere if they were planning anything. So it was always done with informing them, and we're very respectful of the police response and the support they gave to our family. We had 400 unique searchers. People, most of them we've never met in our lives before. We did approximately 120 large-scale searches as a family. It was a monumental effort. My sister Donna took on the role of organizing a lot of that, her and her husband. And I just want to flip through some of the pictures from that time. So this is me, my mom who's here with her husband, my sister Donna, my sister Lisa. We were the core four who communicated about this, searched for Courtney, made decisions in consultation with the family, and we're still the core four. This is a news story. You know, volunteers take to ATVs to search for Courtney Lake near the Ghouls. I can tell you, I've never understood before then how much wooded areas, how many lakes and streams and hills and vales, because we covered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. Next. This is just an example of our searches. We were always very well organized. We took the names and numbers of all the searchers to make sure they all came back at the end of the day, but also to provide to the RNC because we knew that perhaps someone who might have killed her or taken her might come out. You know, that happens at times. Next. Courtney's Search Angels is what the group started to name themselves. This vest was created because we were getting worried. We were getting into fall. We wanted to ensure safety. And we just received so much love and so much support. So the vests and the bright orange hats they wore, the cost was over $3,000, and so we were trying to raise money for it. So I knew someone at the Pentecostal Assemblies in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I asked, like, might you think about contributing $500? And they came back and said, we're going to cover the full amount. It was that kind of love that we just were inundated with. This is some of our searchers. Amazing people. This picture here is about the love of community. So this group is from Marystown. My sisters and I grew up in the community of Marystown. This group got on a bus 5 o'clock in the morning in Marystown, drove all the way in to be at our search by 8:30, 9 o'clock. They then searched the entire day with us. Then they got on the bus and drove back home and returned that night. That's love. Like, that's support. And this final image, we talk about purple ribbon campaigns. We tied ribbons wherever we searched, and our searchers were given ribbons, and once you complete it's a long tie of ribbons so the person knows that it's there. And we would get so many messages from someone out hiking and saying, I just saw a string of purple ribbons. And I was like, yeah, because our searchers were there. That's what that means. So the Purple Ribbon Campaign means a lot to us in so many ways. Next slide. On the night of October 31st, Philip Smith died by his own hand in Bellevue. We were not shocked. He had threatened that, throughout the last few years. My sister Lisa, if she was here, would tell you that she got a call in early June or May from Philip threatening suicide, and Lisa notified his sister, and the sister intervened. The guilt Lisa lives with is, what if she hadn't? Would Courtney still be alive if she had not endeavored to save Philip Smith? That we'll never know. 2 weeks after the suicide, actually before I get into that, this was not a shocking thing. It was astounding, but I had hope too, because I really believed he wouldn't be able to kill himself far from her. I really thought we'd find her. And the RNC conducted a large-scale search in the Bellevue area where he was found, and they had multiple search and rescue teams and so on. And it took place over multiple days, and there was no darker day for me than the day they said they didn't find anything. Next, please. November 14th, the RNC held a news conference with our family and with my sister Lisa as spokesperson. It was the first time they've done a news conference with a family. And I think it was because they had grown to see that, they could trust us. We were trying to do this in the best way possible to support them and try to find Courtney. And in this news conference, Tom Warren, who was the lead over the investigative team, announced that Philip Smith was the only suspect. He also announced that he believed people close to Philip or people who knew Philip had information, and that they were not being forthcoming, and they're still not being forthcoming. I was so proud of Lisa on that day. Lisa has MS as well, which has greatly advanced since Courtney was murdered. There are really tough, raw days, but man, she knocked it out of the park here and did Courtney proud and appealed to people to come forward, but we're still waiting. So, anyone who loses a loved one tragically, it's horrendous. But there's a grieving process that's soothing to families. You have a funeral, families gather, friends gather, you say goodbye. We've never been able to do that because Courtney's remains are where Philip Smith left them, and we can't find her. Courtney's dad, Sean, erected this in a cemetery in St. Lawrence, and I don't know if there's anything more heartbreaking than a headstone without a grave. It's beautiful, but it's stark and heart-wrenching too, because we still don't have her. Last year, I presented to the AWLE conference. It's at Atlantic Women in Law Enforcement, and I presented a more extended version of this presentation, and a sergeant, Riley Knock, came up to me, an RCMP sergeant, after the presentation, and he said, I got to share a story with you. And he told me about how, in his detachment, a man had come in and confessed to murdering a woman several years prior. And I was like, really? He said, yeah. And he said, here's what he told me. The reason I'm confessing now is I can't stand seeing her picture everywhere. So he said, you keep doing what you're doing. While you and the RNC know that her killer is gone from this world, your continued promotion and these events and keeping that Facebook group alive may get to someone enough soon so that they'll come forward and we can find her. So we're going to keep going. Based on our communications presence and social media, we were approached by Paramount Studios. Just so you know, if anyone approaches me about Courtney wants to do something, I'm always suspicious. I'm always critical. We got to examine it inside and out because our family reputation is at stake. We have to be very careful, but this turned out to be legit. So Paramount Studios has this program called Never Seen Again, and an entire episode was dedicated to Courtney. They came here to the province 3 times a couple of summers ago, interviewed myself, my sister Donna, and Lisa, and also members of the RCMP, as well as reporters in the media who've done a lot of the coverage. And I think it's just a testament to, you know, the importance of keeping a name and a face out there. And now when we go in our Facebook group, every single day since then, we get 10 new followers easily. But they're from Kentucky and Alabama and Alberta and Seattle and all over because they've seen this, right? So we're going to keep it going. This is the final image I'll share with you. It's my favorite picture of Courtney at my favorite time of year. So she sat there at the end of the island in my house. And I know it's Christmas Day because I cook Christmas Day dinner every Christmas. And we all gather, nearly 20 of us at times. And it's crazy and chaotic, but we laugh and have fun. And Courtney is here with a little smirk. The smirk is because I've probably taken too many pictures by now, right? But when I look at this picture, here's what I think. Did I hug her tightly enough that day? Does she know how much we love her still? I wonder, how are her cousins, like my daughters, all her other cousins, how are they impacted now going through the world where their cousin was murdered, right? But we still gather at Christmas, and we still celebrate and have happy times, but it will never, ever be the same. One positive thing that Lisa created from this is that the City of Mount Pearl supports our family and Lisa in having a tree lighting in St. David's Park every year, done with purple lights, because not only is it the color to signify intimate partner violence, but it was also Courtney's favorite color. And Christmas she absolutely loved. So watch our Facebook page, help us find Courtney, and we'll put something out there about the tree lighting that's going to happen in December. I want to finish with just a section of a poem that I love. It's about Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, that's fine. Just what our family does, and just take the essence of what this means. It's a poem by Christina Rossetti that was first published in 1893. And it says this: love came down at Christmas, love all lovely, love divine. Love came down, love was born at Christmas, star and angels gave the sign. Christmas is about gathering. This upcoming holiday season is about getting together with love and loved ones and family. And my message to you is that you hug deeply and warmly. And remember that tomorrow is not promised to anyone here. And we know that too well. So in Courtney's memory, reach out in kindness and love to those you think need it. And keep speaking out against gender-based violence in this province and country. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda, for sharing that very touching story. It is now my pleasure to welcome back the Wabeeg-Mooin drumming group to perform the honor song.
I'm just here, we're going to play the Mi'kmaq honor song, and to honor those that are here and those that are not. We'd just like to ask that you stand if you can, remove any hats or headwear and to just, yeah, that's all right.
Thank you so much for sharing the honor song with us. I now invite Gemma Hickey to the podium. They have spent years advocating for the 2S LGBTQIA+ rights. Most recently, they were presented with a Governor General's Award in commemoration of the person's case for helping to make Canada more inclusive while inspiring others to make a difference at home and around the world. Gemma?
Wow. So touched by the speakers and all the performers. I wonder, if we could applaud the speakers right now, if we could applaud them. Silence is part of the problem, and I know these events, it's hard to know what to do or how to respond, but I think it's important that we're loud. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here today as we recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Despite the current state of the world, seeing familiar faces in this room brings me comfort, especially those who've inspired me over the years. Thank you all for continuously showing up, not just for me, but for yourselves and countless others. We didn't become advocates by choice. We did it out of necessity. It's astounding that even now, our society focuses on cautioning girls about walking alone and policing their clothing choices rather than teaching boys about consent. In 2019, while addressing various countries at the United Nations in Geneva on gender-based violence, I was confronted with its global repercussions. According to the UN, violence against women and girls remains a pervasive violation of human rights worldwide. Shockingly, nearly 1 in 3 women have endured physical and/or sexual violence in their lives. The harsh reality extends across workplaces, online platforms, and has intensified amid the pandemic, global conflicts, and the widespread impacts of climate change. Still, this data doesn't fully capture the extent of the problem due to insufficient measures in prevention and support. And in most cases, it's not safe for a survivor to disclose or speak out about abuse. Two years ago, I summoned the courage to reveal the identity of my abuser. It took decades to get to that point, and I can attest that I explored every conceivable avenue before filing at court. Taking that step ranks among the most challenging things I've ever done. Yet, it unexpectedly brought me a sense of liberation. Finally, I felt his suffocating presence disappear. It wasn't just the emotional weight, but the tangible burden of his existence that had imprisoned me in that traumatic past. Despite the passage of time and the efforts I invested in therapy, I remained trapped beneath his hold, unable to break free. I spent years fearing an accidental run-in, evading places of worship, and choosing cards over attending important occasions like funerals. I frequently opted for a longer route to and from destinations to steer clear of specific churches. These are just a few examples. His influence extended beyond my relationships, seeping into the very core of my being. I feared backlash once I revealed his identity because he was so beloved. But now, living contentedly within the house of my own body, I stand unshakable. I'm not afraid anymore. I want women to know that I see you because I've been you. I was assigned female at birth, raised and mistreated as a girl, and endured the hardships associated with being a woman. Now, with the privilege that comes with presenting as male, I bear an added responsibility, having experienced both perspectives. I'm mindful of the space I occupy. If you're walking ahead of me at night, I'll respectfully move to the other side of the street to ensure your comfort, all while silently supporting you every step of the way. Now that my voice has deepened, I won't raise it except to sing your praises and allyship. My shoulders may have broadened, but so has my mind. And as your ally, I want my actions to resonate as loudly as my words. I once believed I had to excel at everything because I was a woman. But I've come to realize that the pressure to excel persists because I look like a man. Oddly, the cultural weight of gender knows no bounds. As I grow more comfortable with the way I present, there are moments when I wear my masculinity as a mark of shame rather than a source of pride. That's why I'm profoundly grateful, Minister, to be accepted here and invited to speak. Since childhood, my gender was seen as a hurdle. Participating in sports was discouraged as a girl. Wearing dresses felt foreign. I couldn't relate to them, and they attracted unwanted attention from the older boys in my neighborhood. Every day I endured relentless attacks. As a teenager with feelings for girls, I felt restricted because I didn't fit the mold of a boy. I tried to conform, but inhabiting my own body felt foreign, as if I was a stranger in a strange land. Back then, there existed no vocabulary for people like me. The era was vastly different, and acceptance was scarce. When conversion therapy proved ineffective, I grappled with despair and attempted suicide. Though my attempt was unsuccessful, it served as a turning point. The activist in me was born. It was my walk across Newfoundland that spurred my decision to transition, a trek from one end of the island to the other side of my own identity. After a year of hormone injections, my body underwent a profound transformation. The woman I once was began to fade away, while the essence of the man within me started to take shape. I hesitated to entirely let go of her because she played a vital role in shaping the person I was becoming. If I had a son, I'd want to impart the lessons learned through my lived experience as a woman. Ironically, although I spent a great deal of my life attempting to erase her, accepting her became the pivotal point moving me forward. I embraced being non-binary, refusing to confine myself to the labels of male or female, recognizing the absence of space for individuals like me. I kept my name and opted to change the law instead. But it's been the most solitary journey I've known. Despite visible advancements, I've often faced hurtful stereotypes, verbal abuse, and threats of harm. Recently, someone asked me, why not change your name to match your appearance? You pass as a man, so wouldn't that make you feel safe? Wouldn't you be safer? Safety has never been a luxury I could afford. As a woman, I walked with a constant awareness, glancing over my shoulder. I never imagined I'd have to maintain the same vigilance, appearing as a man. A few months back, I returned to the UN. While abroad, 4 men targeted me, hurling money, calling me names, and threatening sexual violence. They overheard my conversation with colleagues in the hotel lobby about being transgender and accosted me outside. Thankfully, my colleagues heard the commotion and were close by. I gathered the money, slammed it on the table before the men, and met their gaze. My name is Gemma, I declared, and then I walked away. I spent most of my life pretending to be something I'm not. Those days are behind me now. As I stand here today, recounting parts of my life that brought me to this podium, I'm struck by the immense changes we've witnessed and the unyielding strength that keeps us moving forward. While the shadows of hatred and bigotry lurk, I find solace in the collective resilience that we share. In the face of adversity, I choose hope. Hope that each day brings us closer to a world where acceptance reigns supreme, where identities are celebrated rather than suppressed, where diversity of our experiences enriches us rather than divides us. Yes, our path has been arduous, riddled with obstacles and unspoken battles. Yet each step taken, each struggle faced, has forged a path for all those who feel unseen, unheard, and marginalized. I envision a future where every individual, irrespective of gender, can live authentically without fear. A future where the battles we fight today become the stepping stones for a more inclusive and compassionate tomorrow. Until that day comes, I'll continue to show up here if I'm welcome. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Gemma. We all have a role to play in raising awareness surrounding gender-based violence. It is now time to raise the purple ribbon flag. Minister Parsons will be joined by Philip Hibbs, Debbie Hibbs, Glenda Power, and Gemma Hickey. Also, to let people know, the purple ribbon flag will be raised on the courtesy flagpole outside of Confederation Building starting on Saturday, November 25th, and will be flown for the duration of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, please welcome back Wabeg Muan Drumming to perform Traveling Song. Thank you again. I'd also like to thank everybody for attending, and I appreciate being asked to MC this event. It's been an honor for me. I now invite Elder Emma Relis to say the closing prayer. Following this, you're all welcome to stay and share in some refreshments. Thank you again.
Please stand for our closing. God, creator of the universe, in closing of the Purple Ribbon Campaign, I pray that you fill our hearts with your strength and courage, and that we thank you for calling us out of silence today for all our missing and murdered Indigenous and non-Indigenous women and girls and gender diverse 2S LGBTQIA+ peoples in our province and Canada. Creator, there are so many people who live in darkness today as a result of abusive relationships in the hands of the ones they love. Abuse comes in many forms, mentally and physically. Creator, protect the innocent women and girls who suffer the violence. Find them a safe place that they can walk in peace and to enjoy a full life of your blessings, to be respected and valued and never doubt the power of prayer. Creator, I pray for justice, that there has to be respect, compassion, and dignity for every human life. Creator, touch the hearts of the men and the ones that they abuse. Help heal their thinking so that they can turn to you to seek help, to lead them on a new path to a new life. Creator, help heal the wounds and disappointments of the families, to make them strong to carry on the fight for justice for their loved ones who did nothing wrong. Amen. Thank you.